What if the change you have been praying for is not being delayed by heaven, but being obscured by the conversation you keep having with yourself? Think about that for a moment. You can pray for abundance while quietly preparing yourself for scarcity. You can ask for peace while spending the night rehearsing everything that could go wrong. You can ask for love while expecting someone to leave. You can ask for divine guidance while secretly demanding that the answer arrive on your schedule through your preferred person in the exact form you imagined. And then when nothing changes quickly enough, you wonder if your prayer was heard. You wonder if your faith is weak. You wonder if you are somehow being forgotten. But perhaps there is another question you have never been invited to ask. What if your words are not merely describing the life you are living? What if they are revealing the inner reality you have been preparing yourself to recognize? Have you ever spoken an affirmation in the morning, felt inspired for a few minutes, and then spent the rest of the day imagining everything going wrong? Have you ever said, "I trust," while your thoughts whispered, "But what if it never happens?" Have you ever declared that you were ready for your breakthrough only to hear another voice inside you quietly say, "People like me do not get those things"? If you have, do not judge yourself. You are not broken. You are witnessing something far more important. You are hearing two different voices competing for authority within you. One voice speaks from fear. It remembers yesterday. It studies the evidence. It counts what is missing. It asks how, when, and why. The other voice is quieter. It does not argue with the darkness. It does not need to prove itself. It carries the whisper of release. It remembers that your present circumstances are not the entire story of your life. And perhaps your spiritual journey is not about creating a louder voice. Perhaps it is about learning which voice deserves the throne. This is where the deeper teachings associated with Florence Scovel Shinn begin to become fascinating. Her work placed extraordinary emphasis on the spoken word, expectation, intuition, divine order, and the refusal to allow fear to become the governing principle of consciousness. The teaching was not simply say something positive and wait for the universe to obey. It was more subtle, more demanding. Your words reveal what you are willing to believe. Your expectations influence what you notice. Your inner conversation shapes the emotional atmosphere from which you make decisions. And when your words, emotions, expectations, and actions begin moving in the same spiritual direction, something inside you becomes less divided. That is where the hidden doorway begins to appear. Not a doorway in the physical world, a silent gate of destiny within consciousness. You may have stood before this gate many times without recognizing it. Perhaps you thought the gate was another opportunity, another relationship, another amount of money, another answered prayer, another circumstance finally becoming favorable. But what if the gate is actually the moment when you stop allowing fear to speak for you? What if the miracle begins before the evidence arrives? Not because every difficulty disappears instantly, not because every desire is guaranteed to manifest exactly as imagined, but because something within you stops bowing to the appearance of impossibility. You begin to speak differently. You begin to interpret differently. You begin to respond differently. And because you respond differently, you begin to walk differently. This is where sacred surrender enters. Surrender does not mean giving up on what matters to you. It means releasing the exhausting demand that life must unfold through one particular door. The soul has a compass. Fear wants a map. Fear says, "Show me exactly how this will happen, and then I will trust." Faith says, "Give me the wisdom for the next step, and I will walk." There is an enormous difference between those two voices. One keeps you frozen until certainty arrives. The other allows movement even when the entire road cannot yet be seen. So if you have been exhausted from trying to force spiritual results, breathe for a moment. You do not have to force the divine orchestra to play louder. You do not have to chase every sign. You do not have to punish yourself for having fear. You only have to become conscious of the words you are feeding your inner world. When fear says, "Nothing ever works for me," pause. Do not fight it. Do not shame yourself. Simply answer, "I refuse to make this moment my prophecy." When anxiety says it is too late for me, answer, "My life is not finished because I cannot yet see the next chapter." When your mind says, "I have no idea how this will happen," answer, "I do not need to know the entire path to take the next faithful step." That is not pretending. That is spiritual discipline. That is the beginning of healing your internal dialogue. Now close your eyes for a moment if you can. Imagine standing before a quiet gate at dawn. Behind you are the sentences that frightened you, the predictions, the disappointments, the old identities, the words you repeated because someone taught them to you, because life hurt you, because fear once helped you survive. You do not need to destroy them. Simply let them fall silent. Then place your hand upon the gate and whisper, "Divine wisdom, govern my words. Let me speak from truth rather than fear. Let my thoughts become clear. Let my heart become willing. teaching. Let me recognize the good that is already seeking expression in my life. Show me the next step and give me the courage to take it. Then remain still. Do not demand an immediate sign. Do not interrogate the silence. Just listen, because sometimes the first miracle is not the arrival of the thing you requested. Sometimes it is the moment you become peaceful enough to recognize what was already trying to guide you. And if this kind of spiritual teaching speaks to something deeper within you, subscribe to this channel and remain here for the daily reminders that help you return to faith awareness and divine truth. Because we are not here simply to collect beautiful words. We are here to become different people because of the truths we understand. And that brings us to the question we must answer next. Why do certain words feel empty when spoken from fear, while other words seem to awaken strength, peace, and expectancy within the soul? What gives a word its spiritual weight? The answer begins with a law that has been operating quietly beneath your thoughts, your conversations, and your expectations all along. And once you understand that law, you may never hear your own voice in quite the same way again. Why do certain words feel empty when they leave your lips, while other words seem to awaken something within you? You asked that question at the silent gate. Now we can step closer. The answer begins with understanding that your words are never merely sounds passing through the air. They carry attention. They carry expectation. They carry memory. They carry the emotional atmosphere from which you are looking at your life. This is why Florence Scovel Shinn gave such importance to the spoken word. In her metaphysical teachings, language was not treated as decoration for thought. It was connected to consciousness, expectation, faith, intuition, and divine order. A sentence repeated often enough can become an instruction that your inner world begins to obey. Think about how quietly this happens. You say, "I am always unlucky." Perhaps you say it jokingly. Perhaps you say it after another disappointment. Perhaps you have said it so many times that you no longer hear the sentence as a belief, but your mind hears it, your attention hears it, your emotions hear it, and slowly, the statement can become a lens through which you interpret what happens next. You begin noticing evidence that confirms it. You remember the doors that closed and forget the doors that opened. You expect disappointment before the conversation begins. You hesitate before opportunity has even introduced itself. The sentence becomes more than a sentence. It becomes an identity script. This is why the power of the word should never be reduced to magical vocabulary. Saying beautiful words while secretly expecting disaster does not create spiritual transformation. The deeper power is the consciousness behind the word. Your mouth may say, "I trust," but what does your inner world do immediately afterward? Does it soften? Does it become receptive? Does it allow room for divine guidance? Or does it begin calculating every possible way the situation could fail? That difference matters. Imagine that your consciousness is a divine architect standing before an immense drafting table. The table is your inner world. Your repeated thoughts are sketches scattered across the surface. Your words are instructions written beside those sketches. Your emotions are the atmosphere inside the room. If every page says there is never enough, then scarcity becomes the architecture you repeatedly study. If every page says I am unwanted, then rejection becomes the expectation through which you examine relationships. If every page says something terrible is coming, peace becomes difficult to recognize even when it is standing beside you. But now imagine the architect placing a different blueprint on the table, not a fantasy, not a desperate attempt to deny reality. A blueprint grounded in spiritual possibility. I am willing to receive the good that is seeking expression in my life. Feel the difference. I hope things improve places your good somewhere ahead of you. I am willing to receive the good that is already seeking expression in my life. Opens the inner door, opens the inner. The first sentence can quietly reinforce waiting. The second creates receptivity. One says, perhaps someday. The other says, I am available to divine order now. That does not mean every external circumstance changes instantly. It means you have changed the position from which you meet the circumstance. And that is where the teaching becomes practical. Words influence what you notice. They influence what you expect. They influence how you interpret uncertainty. They influence the actions you consider possible. They can strengthen fear, or they can create enough inner space for wisdom to speak. This is why your internal dialogue deserves reverence, not fear, reverence, because you are constantly speaking to yourself. Even when you are silent, some sentence is usually running beneath the silence. I am behind. I am not enough. I have to do everything alone. People always leave. Money never stays. Nothing works for me. Something bad is going to happen. Notice what these sentences have in common. They do not merely describe an event. They describe a world. And when you repeatedly describe yourself yourself through the language of limitation. The limitation can begin to feel like identity. You stop saying, I am experiencing difficulty. You begin saying, I am a person for whom everything is difficult. That is a profound difference. One describes a season, the other defines a self. Spiritual healing begins when you learn to separate the two. You can acknowledge what hurts without crowning it as your destiny. You can admit that money is tight without declaring yourself permanently deprived. You can acknowledge loneliness without deciding that you are destined to remain alone. You can recognize fear without allowing fear to become your prophet. This is where the law of substitution becomes useful. Do not spend your entire day fighting an unwanted thought. Do not shout at yourself for being afraid. Do not turn spiritual growth into another reason to criticize yourself. Instead, when the old sentence appears consciously, give your mind a truer direction. If the old thought says nothing works for me, you might answer, this moment is difficult, but my future is not required to repeat my past. If the old thought says I will never have enough answer, I can meet this reality wisely while remaining open to new provision and new possibilities. If the old thought says I always choose wrong answer, I am learning to listen more deeply, choose more consciously, and trust my inner guidance. Notice that these statements do not require you to lie to yourself. They create room for truth without making pain your identity. That is spiritual language with roots. That is a word spoken from consciousness rather than desperation. Now I want you to pause. Think of one sentence you have repeated about yourself for so long that you no longer realize it is a belief. Perhaps it began with someone else's voice. Perhaps it began during a painful season. Perhaps it was born from one disappointment and slowly became a prediction about your entire life. What sentence is it? Do not fight it. Just see it. Now ask yourself, what would change if I stopped describing my limitation as my identity? Let that question remain with you. Take a breath and replace the old sentence with one that opens a door, not an exaggerated promise, not a sentence you cannot emotionally receive, a truthful spiritual possibility. If you have been saying, I am always, behind perhaps say, I am learning to move according to wisdom rather than fear. If you have been saying, I am forgotten, perhaps say, I remain worthy of love, guidance, and meaningful connection. If you have been saying, I do not know what to do, perhaps say, I do not need the entire answer to recognize my next wise step. Now close your eyes for a few seconds. Picture the divine architect inside you, removing one old blueprint from the table. Do not tear it apart. Simply set it down, then place a fresh page before you. On that page, write one sentence that your soul can actually believe. Then whisper, may my words become aligned with truth. May fear no longer write my identity. May wisdom guide my speech. May my inner world become receptive to what is good, purposeful, and divinely ordered. Teach me to speak from faith without denying reality. Teach me to surrender without becoming passive. Teach me to listen before I answer, and remain there for a moment, because the sacred shift is not that you have discovered the perfect sentence. The shift is that you have become conscious of the one you were already speaking. That awareness is the beginning. The word matters, but the word is only the doorway, because beneath every word there can be another force shaping its meaning. You can speak of trust while secretly resisting what is happening. You can speak of surrender while demanding a particular outcome. You can speak of abundance while fearing every expense. You can speak of love while guarding your heart against being seen. There is something beneath the language that determines whether the word becomes an opening or another form of struggle, and that hidden force has been quietly influencing your prayers, your expectations, and your relationship with divine timing. It is resistance, and once you understand it, you will discover why sometimes the soul's greatest breakthrough begins not by speaking more forcefully, but by finally releasing what it has been gripping. You have learned to watch your words. Now there is something deeper to notice, because sometimes the words are right, yet something inside you is still pulling in the opposite direction. You say, I am open to abundance. Then your mind immediately asks, but where will it come from? You say, I trust divine timing. Then you quietly calculate how many days remain before you think it must happen. You say, I am ready for love. Yet somewhere inside, you are already preparing yourself for rejection. This is the hidden conflict. You do not merely desire something, you desire it while resisting the possibility of receiving it. And that resistance can become so familiar that you mistake it for realism. You call it being practical. You call it protecting yourself. You call it learning from the past. But sometimes, what you call protection is simply fear holding tightly to the steering wheel. This is where the law of non-resistance becomes a profound spiritual teaching. In the metaphysical tradition associated with Florence Scovel, Shin non-resistance points toward a life in which you stop fighting reality with fear. Stop demanding that every blessing arrive through one predetermined channel, and stop treating uncertainty as proof that divine order has abandoned you. Non-resistance does not mean doing nothing. It does not mean allowing people to mistreat you. It does not mean ignoring responsibilities. It does not mean sitting still while hoping the universe will solve every practical problem. It means something more inward. It means refusing to give fear authority over your imagination. There is a difference between responding to reality and surrendering your inner world to it. You can see the closed door without declaring that every door is closed. You can acknowledge the difficult number in your bank account without turning that number into a prophecy about your entire future. You can experience disappointment without making disappointment your identity. Resistance says, I must control how. Non-resistance says, I am open to the right way. Resistance says, it has to happen exactly like this. Non-resistance says, I release the form and remain faithful to the good. Resistance says, if I cannot see it, it cannot be happening. Non-resistance says, I do not need to see the entire bridge before I take the next wise step. Feel the difference. One posture tightens the body, the other creates room. One keeps staring at the lock, the other begins looking for the key. There is an old image I want you to carry with you. Imagine a person standing before a massive iron gate. They have been told that something precious lies beyond it, so they push. They push with both hands. They push until their shoulders ache. They push until their palms hurt. Every morning they return to the same gate. They begin to believe that the gate is their destiny. They tell themselves that if they only try harder, pray harder, visualize harder, believe harder, somehow the iron will finally surrender. Years seem to pass inside that struggle. Then one morning, exhausted, they stop pushing, not because they have abandoned the journey, because they have finally become quiet enough to see. A few steps to the side is a narrow path. It was there the entire time. The gate had occupied so much of their attention that they never noticed the road beside it. Now understand the deeper meaning of this image. It does not mean every obstacle disappears when you relax. It does not mean persistence is wrong. Some doors genuinely require patience, preparation, courage, repeated effort, or practical action. The lesson is that resistance can narrow perception. When fear becomes obsessed with one outcome, the mind can become blind to other possibilities. You stop asking, what is possible? You ask only, how do I force this particular thing to happen? And those are completely different questions. Perhaps you have been standing before a gate like that. Perhaps you have been trying to make one person choose you, trying to force one opportunity to become your future, trying to make one financial solution appear in one particular form, trying to make a timeline obey you, trying to convince yourself that if you stop controlling everything, everything will collapse. But what if the door you keep trying to force is not the door you were meant to enter? What if divine guidance is trying to redirect you rather than reward your struggle? What if surrender is not losing control, but releasing the need to control the outcome? Let that question reach somewhere deeper than your thoughts, because many people pray for guidance while secretly giving God instructions. They say, lead me. But what they mean is, lead me exactly here. They say, I trust you. But underneath the words is, as long as you give me what I requested in the way I requested it by the date I requested, that is not trust. That is negotiation disguised as faith. Sacred surrender is different. It says, this is what I desire, and I will honor that desire without making my peace dependent upon one specific outcome. That is freedom. That is the whisper of release. And perhaps your soul has been waiting to hear it. Try this now. Think of one thing you deeply desire. Do not choose something superficial. Choose the thing that has been occupying your thoughts. Now practice the three-part release. First, name the desire. Say, I desire meaningful work that allows me to use my gifts and support my life. Second, name the fear attached to it. Say, I am afraid that if this particular opportunity does not happen, I will have missed my chance. Third, release the demand for one specific route. Say, I release my insistence on how this must happen. I remain available to the right opportunity, the right guidance, and the right next step. Notice what happens inside you. You may feel relief. You may feel resistance. You may even hear another voice saying, but what if nothing happens? Do not fight that voice. Simply answer it. I do not need certainty to practice trust. That sentence can become a quiet anchor. When anxiety says you are running out of time, answer, I will use this moment wisely without turning urgency into panic. When fear says, this is your only chance, answer, my future is larger than the path I can currently see. When disappointment says, the door closed so everything is over, answer, a closed door is information, not a verdict. This is how internal dialogue begins to heal. Not through pretending, through choosing a wiser interpretation. Now imagine yourself standing again before that silent gate. This time, you are not pushing. You are breathing. breathing, you are listening, you notice the path beside you. You do not know exactly where it leads, but something within you feels less constricted. Your soul's compass has begun moving again. Offer this brief prayer. Divine wisdom, loosen my grip on what fear insists must happen. Give me courage to recognize another way. Teach me to desire without desperation. Teach me to act without forcing. Teach me to trust without becoming passive. And when the path changes, give me the humility to follow. That is non-resistance, not weakness, not surrendering your dreams, not abandoning action. It is the sacred willingness to stop making your peace dependent upon controlling every detail. You have learned that your words matter. Now you have learned that the consciousness beneath those words matters too. But there is still a question waiting. If you are not supposed to force the outcome, what are you actually supposed to do while you wait? How do you distinguish spiritual patience from passive fear? How do you know when to move, when to remain still, and when to trust that something is unfolding beyond what your eyes can currently measure? That question leads us to the divine clock. And once you understand the difference between waiting in fear and resting in faith, time itself begins to look very different. Just because something has not appeared yet does not mean nothing is happening. There are moments in life when the silence feels like an answer you never wanted to hear. You prayed, you waited, you believed, you tried to remain hopeful, and still the door has not opened. So eventually, another voice begins speaking. Why not me? How much longer? Maybe God forgot me. Maybe I am not worthy. Maybe I did something wrong. Maybe my prayer failed. Maybe everyone else is moving forward while I am standing still. If you have ever carried those questions quietly, you are not alone. There is a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from waiting for something your heart has already imagined. You can endure difficulty when you understand its purpose, but uncertainty can feel heavier because you cannot see what is happening behind the curtain. This is where many people misunderstand divine timing. They hear the phrase and imagine that it means sitting helplessly in the dark doing nothing, hoping that someday something changes. That is not spiritual maturity, and it is not what we are exploring here. Divine timing does not mean divine denial. A delay is not automatically a rejection. An unanswered prayer is not automatically abandonment. A closed door is not automatically punishment. Sometimes the most painful interpretation you can make of your circumstances is simply an interpretation. You see the absence of movement and conclude that there is no movement. But life can be changing beneath the surface long before the visible picture changes. Think about a seed beneath the earth. From above, nothing appears to be happening. The soil looks unchanged. The ground seems silent. Yet beneath that silence, roots are forming. The seed is not failing because you cannot see the roots. It is developing according to a process your eyes cannot measure. This is why I want you to imagine something called the divine clock. Your clock measures urgency. It asks, how quickly can this happen? How many days have passed? How much longer can I tolerate this? The divine clock represents something different. Readiness, alignment, growth. Circumstances you cannot yet see. People you have not yet met. Opportunities that have not yet appeared. Lessons that are still becoming wisdom. These two clocks can appear to disagree. Your clock says now. Your deeper wisdom may be saying, become ready. Your fear says you are late. Your soul may be saying, you are being prepared. Your mind says, nothing is happening. Life may be quietly rearranging what you cannot yet perceive. But hear this carefully. Divine timing should never become an excuse for refusing to act. If you need to make the phone call, make the phone call. If you need to learn the skill, learn the skill. If you need to apply for the opportunity, apply. If you need to leave what is unhealthy, gather your courage and leave. Trust does not cancel action. Faith does not remove responsibility. The spiritual path is not about becoming passive. It is about becoming peaceful enough to recognize the right action when it appears. There is a profound difference between waiting in fear and resting in faith. Waiting in fear says I cannot live until this happens. Resting in faith says I can live fully today while remaining open to what is coming. Waiting in fear watches the clock every hour. Resting in faith uses the hour. Waiting in fear demands evidence. Resting in faith allows evidence to arrive in its own time. This is where divine timing and the law of nonresistance meet. You can desire something deeply without becoming enslaved to its timing. You can say, I want this. I am ready for this. I am moving toward this. And at the same time, say I release my demand that it must arrive through the route I have imagined. That is desire without desperation. And there is tremendous spiritual strength in that distinction. Perhaps you have been asking for a change in your life for months. Maybe you have wanted a new career, a loving relationship, financial stability, a sense of purpose, a deeper connection with with God, and perhaps the waiting period has made you question your worth. But what if the waiting period was not asking you to prove that you deserve the blessing? What if it was revealing what needed to change inside you before you could carry the blessing differently? Consider someone who spent years longing for a meaningful career. Every rejection felt personal. Every unanswered application became evidence that life was against them. They began saying, "Nothing works for me." Eventually, they stopped measuring their worth by every response. They began learning. They strengthened their skills. They discovered what kind of work actually mattered to them. They became more disciplined. They became less desperate for approval. They stopped chasing every opportunity simply because it promised escape. And then when another opportunity appeared, they recognized something they would not have recognized before. They were no longer asking, "Will this save me?" They were asking, "Is this aligned with who I have become?" The waiting had not magically guaranteed the outcome. It had changed the person who would meet the opportunity. That is a different kind of miracle. Sometimes the external answer you are asking for is not the only thing being formed. You are being formed too. Your patience is being formed. Your discernment is being formed. Your courage is being formed. Your ability to receive without self-sabotage is being formed. Your capacity to recognize what is right for you is being formed. The divine orchestra does not reveal every instrument at once. Sometimes you hear only silence between the notes, but silence is not the same thing as the absence of music. So ask yourself a different question today. Instead of asking, "Why has it not happened yet?" ask, "What is this season teaching me to become?" Instead of asking, "How long must I wait?" ask, "What is today's faithful step?" Instead of saying, "Maybe I am forgotten," say, "I do not know the entire story yet." Instead of saying, "Maybe I am not worthy," say, "My I." Worth does not rise and fall according to the speed of circumstances. This is how you begin healing the internal dialogue. You stop allowing temporary conditions to write permanent conclusions. Close your eyes for a moment if you can. Imagine a great clock suspended inside a vast temple. Its hands are moving quietly. You cannot force them. You cannot stop them. You do not need to understand every mechanism behind them. Now imagine placing your desire before that clock. Do not throw it away. Do not pretend you do not care. Simply place it there with open hands. Then breathe. Say within yourself, "I honor what I desire. I release my fear of when. I will take the step that belongs to today. I will allow tomorrow to reveal itself when it arrives." That is not surrendering your dream. That is surrendering the panic surrounding your dream. And if your heart is tired, offer this prayer. Divine intelligence, guide me toward what is mine by right of divine order. Remove my fear of timing. Give me clarity for today's step and peace about tomorrow. Teach me to recognize preparation without calling it punishment. Teach me to recognize redirection without calling it rejection. Teach me to trust the path without demanding that I see its entire shape. And now ask yourself something that may change the way you live this very day.